So card catch is a very simple idea, and I'm sure from the performance, you've already seen this sleight on YouTube, but usually, if you've seen this sleight on YouTube, it's usually performed under the context of a sandwich routine. But there's also a couple more things that you can actually do with this move, which is why I'm presenting this move in this channel over here. So most people actually associate this move with a certain Johann Nepomuk Hofzinser, and they also associate him with the sandwich effect that you usually see on YouTube. But that's actually not correct, because this move actually predates Hofzinser, and he also never used this move for a sandwich effect. So the oldest known documentation for this move actually comes from Les Secrets de la Prestidigitation et de la Magie. I can never say that word correctly, but that book was back in 1868 by Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. So in that book, Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin actually describes a performance by a certain Louis Christian Emmanuel Comte. That's 5 names in one. I don't know why it's so long, but in there, Comte apparently performed a certain effect where he would actually catch the selections from a tossed deck of cards. So it's sort of like the modern, modern day sandwich effect that you usually see. So I imagine that's actually where it comes from. Where Johann Nepomuk Hofzinser would become known for this move would be in the German magic magazine, Kartenkunst. I think that's how you pronounce it, back in 1910. So there he actually performs an effect called the 4/8, where he would actually do the move twice. So he would actually do card catch twice to produce a 4 of a kind. He also used this move for an effect called the Married Hearts number 2, which he sort of uses this move for a very bizarre switch, which isn't necessarily my favorite. So I'll briefly touch on it in this video, but just don't expect me to like this move all that much, because it's a very, very bizarre switch, and it's also very discrepant as well. So yeah, you'll see later on. But it is also worth noting that this move might actually predate Louis Christian Emmanuel Apollinaire Comte's era, because in Card Magic back in 1944 by John Norton Hilliard, John Norton Hilliard actually makes a deliberate note to say that this move might already be an artifact of the past during Comte's era. So what this means is that this move might have not actually been published for a very, very long time, and it just sort of remained there and no one just published it, and it's like an extremely, extremely old move. So it is possible that this move is a lot older than we believe it to be, which isn't really surprising because it's a friction-based move and it seems relatively simple. But regardless of the actual age of this move, another name that's worth noting in the history of card catch is a certain Reinhard Müller. So in the Pallbearers review back in 1971, specifically volume 6, number 9, there we go. So there is an effect called the 3-card catch, and that's actually where the sandwich effect that we all know and love today, that you see on YouTube all the time, that is where this particular effect is published in. And that's generally the broad history of the card catch. So the basic move will work with 2 cards. The first card is going to be on top of the deck, face down, and then the second card is going to go on the bottom of the deck. The bottom card can be reversed. It sort of depends on the effect that you're doing, but generally I would keep it face down like so, so the entire deck is in the same orientation. So your right hand is going to grip the deck by the fingertips. The palm is facing upwards like so. The pad of your thumb is going to be on the center of the top card. The rest of your fingers is going to contact the center line of the bottom card like so. And you're just going to apply the slightest bit of pressure, enough to just hold the deck in your right hand, and that's all. Friction will do the rest of the work. You're now just going to gently toss the deck into your left hand, or onto the floor or onto the table. It really doesn't matter. All you have to do is just give it a toss. But you do have to note that if you are going to catch this deck in your left hand, you should catch it in sort of a straddle grip, just so then you could cage the deck in case some cards like spread around and whatnot, which can happen if you're using a new deck. So as you toss the deck, you want your right fingers to actually remain in contact with the top and bottom card as you toss the deck. If you open your hand as you do the move, it won't work. So you want these fingers to remain wrapped on the top and bottom card of the deck. Now you'll notice that because of the momentum, what actually happens is that the toss will carry this the center section out, and then it'll land in your left hand just like so, while these cards stay behind from pure friction. Alright, so all you're doing is that you're just clamping down on the deck, clamping down the top and bottom card. You're just going to give the deck a toss, and automatically these two cards are going to stay behind and stay in your right hand. Now to demonstrate what's actually happening when you toss the deck, this is what's actually happening, right? If you actually tilt the deck perpendicular with the floor, notice that everything aside from the top and bottom card actually starts to slide out. This is because of friction. Because of the friction between your fingers and the cards, these two cards, the top and bottom card will remain in place while the rest of the deck moves. So when you toss the deck, everything aside from these two cards is going to be carried over by the momentum of the toss while these two cards remain in place. So that's actually what's happening when you toss the deck. So you clamp down on these two cards, you give this deck a toss, and then these two cards remain in your right hand. And that's how you produce two cards with the two card catch. Now for the 3-card catch. So this is the sandwich effect that most people know and love today. So what's actually happening is that you would place the sandwich cards off to the side like so. You would then have your selection go on the bottom of the deck. So to have something that's relatively recognizable, let's just say the Queen of Hearts is the selection. So we're going to place that on the bottom of the deck just like so. Now we're just going to place the sandwich cards face up on top of the deck like so. And we're also going to place one sandwich card on the bottom of the deck like so. But this bottom card is actually going to be side jogged to the left like so. Okay? Now you're going to go in the same grip as before, palm up, thumb on top, and the other fingers on the bottom. The only difference now is the pad of your fingers on the bottom are going to be contacting the edge of the side jog card as well as the face of the selection. So what's happening is that the pad actually contacts both cards at once. So what this means now is that friction will act on these two cards as once. Or at once rather. Sorry, I don't know why my English is weird. But now, when you do the move, instead of just sliding out these two cards, because your pad is contacting this card over here as well, when you do the move, this card will stay behind as well, and now you have a sandwich card. So in motion, it would look like you would place one sandwich card on top, you would place one sandwich card on the bottom, you would then grip everything, right? Pad your fingers on the edge over here, toss, and then looks like a card stays behind with the sandwich card over here. So that is what the 3-card catch is. And again, very, very simple. It works basically automatically just from pure friction. Again, you don't have to death grip this deck, right? It's very, very light. All you need to do is to let friction do the work for you. Now let's get into the Harry Lorayne variation when it comes to the 3-card catch. So this comes from Best of Friends Volume 1 back in 1982 by Harry Lorayne. So this move is going to be sort of a knack that you develop. So unlike the other two entries, this is going to require quite a bit of practice. It's not quite a bit, but you're going to have to find a sweet spot for this move to work. So it's going to be the exact same setup as before. Your selection goes on the bottom of the deck, one sandwich card on top, and then the other sandwich card side jogged to the left. Now, what's going to be different is the grip. So what's actually happening is that you're going to come from the bottom short edge of the deck, and instead of gripping these two cards with all your fingers, the only finger that's going to grab these two cards is going to be your index finger. So your index comes from the bottom right corner, and it's going to contact both cards like so. Okay, so it's going to go at a diagonal like so, and your thumb is just going to grip it at a diagonal as well. So now you have this pinch over here, just like so. All right, so now you're pinching the deck like so. Okay. So the rest of your fingers are just curled underneath very, very gently, and that's it, okay? So to produce the sandwich, rather than tossing the deck to the side, you're actually gonna toss it sort of downwards and into your left hand. So this is gonna be sort of difficult for me to sort of demonstrate because of the distance from the camera and also to the table. But what you want is that you actually want your left hand to be sort of downwards below of your right hand, as well as slightly in front as well. Again, this is going to have to be a sweet spot that you find for yourself. For me, it has to be about like 10 centimeters, I would say, of distance, of height rather. And then this hand is sort of, it really depends, all right? So now this is going to be where just the knack comes into play, okay? So you're just going to flick the deck downwards towards your left hand. So it's going to be a hard and fast flick. Otherwise, the move won't work, okay? So you don't have to use your entire arm for it. You just have to use your wrist for it, okay? So you're in position, and you're just gonna give the deck a flick with your wrist, okay? Just like so. Okay, again, it's kind of hard for me to demonstrate because of the fact I'm gonna hit my table, but it really is just a downwards flick of just your wrist, okay? And it's gonna be really hard for me to describe, but it's a hard and fast flick of your wrist towards your left hand, okay, downwards. So it's gonna be here, and that's when you produce the move, okay? So again, this move is sort of a knack that you have to develop, so you're gonna have to play around with the move. So you're gonna play around with how hard you're gonna flick the deck. You're also going to have to play around with the distance between both hands, all right? But you're going to see it from the performance. So the way that Harry Lorayne actually describes this move in the book is that he actually describes it as you sort of just squirting out the deck when you do the move, because what's actually happening is this, right? You're sort of just, when you flick the deck, it sort of just squirts the deck out like so, okay? And this causes this packet to sort of fan out automatically, okay? So this is sort of the effect that you're looking for. It's just squeezing out motion. So you're not really squeezing out. It's really hard to describe, but it is a drop of the deck, and this causes like this deck to just squish outwards. Okay, so it's really something that you have to play around with, and something that you have to develop. Okay, so really for this move, you're gonna want to practice it over your bed, because chances are when you're first playing around with this move, you're going to drop cards all the time, right? It's no secret, because how this move works is that it relies on this distance. You need this distance between both hands. You need this distance between your right and your left hand. Otherwise, these sandwich cards won't clear the deck, right? It'll just get caught in this position, and that's not really what you want. So you want to give enough distance between your left and your right hand for this deck to clear the sandwich cards, and then you can properly display this sandwich, okay? So do keep in mind that this distance plays a huge role in how this move works, okay? So it contributes a huge amount in how this move and how it works properly, okay? So yeah. Now it is possible to do the 3-card catch with a squared up deck, but it's not that much more effort. So yeah, so you're just gonna have the 2 cards, the 2 sandwich cards on off to the side as per usual, and you're gonna have your selection on the bottom as per usual as well. So in this case, we're gonna use the Queen of Hearts again. So we're gonna place 1 sandwich card on top of the deck, and now your left hand is gonna grab the other sandwich card, but you're going to leave it sort of open in your left hand like so, and instead of just directly placing it on the bottom of the deck, you're actually just going to slide it in from left to right. And as you do so, your left middle ring and pinky finger are just going to contact the face of this card, and it's just going to kick this card off to a side jog. So what's actually happening is that it just kicks it off to the side like so, under the guise of just slipping this card in. Okay, so it's just gonna come in, kick this card in, kick this off to the side like so, and this card is just gonna rest on a square up with the rest of the deck like so. And of course, this side jog card is gonna be hidden by your right hand like so. Next, your left hand is gonna regrip everything in a left hand dealer's grip, but your left thumb is actually just gonna slightly bevel the deck a bit more than usual, like so, and your middle ring and pinky finger are just gonna bend this card along of the bevel, just like so, just so then you don't get this weird side jog over here. Okay, so now that you have this, you can now go in position for the 3-card catch as per usual, but now your index finger is just gonna curl in, and it's just gonna contact the edge in between of the sandwich card and the selection of the side jog selection like so. Okay, and this all happens underneath of a beveled deck like so. Okay, so the deck should remain beveled from the moment that this card is side jogged all the way up to the final production like so. So now you have this nice beveled deck here, and now you can just do the card catch as per usual. You can just toss the deck, and now you can seemingly catch the selection without needing to have this card side jogged like so. Okay, so that's just a slight little thing that you can do, which doesn't really matter. Honestly, I find that it doesn't really matter whether or not this bottom sandwich card is side jogged, but if you don't like having it side jogged, then you could always just side jog the selection itself. Okay, so that is just an alternative that you can do. So this is the 4-card production that Hofzinser used in the finale for the 4/8. It's going to be extremely simple. You're basically just going to do the card catch move twice, and you're basically just going to do it once in each hand. So you're going to take out any 4 cards. Chances are it's going to be a 4 of a kind, or you can also do it with a 4 selection routine, which I don't do, but if you do any effect with 4 selections, then you can also do this production. But typically it's going to be a 4 of a kind. Okay, so the way that's going to be set up is if you want like one hand to have black cards and one hand to have red cards, how you're going to set it up is either black, red, black, black, red, or it's going to be black, red, red, black. It really doesn't really matter, but as long as you have this sort of setup. So you're going to divide this up into pairs, turn them face down, place one pair on top of the deck, turn the other pair face down, and place it on the bottom of the deck. All right, so now you have this display over here. You have red ace, black ace, black ace, red ace over here, or black ace, red ace, black ace, okay? Doesn't really matter again, okay? So what's going to happen is that you're going to grab the deck in typical card catch position, all right? And you're just going to do card catch once, okay? You're just going to produce this once, all right? And now you have both red aces in one hand, like so. The second hand, however, is not going to catch it in a straddle grip like you usually do. It's actually going to catch it in preparation for the card catch position. Okay, so when you toss this deck over here, it's actually, why is it going along? But what's actually happening is that it's actually just going to clamp down on the deck, palm up, in card catch position, just like your right hand. So pat your fingers on the bottom and then thumb on top over here. Okay, so it's just going to be a simple chomp, all right? And now all you need to do is that you just need to repeat the move, but you toss the deck onto the table, like so. Okay, and now you have both red aces in your right hand and both black aces in your left hand, like so. Okay, so what's actually happening is that you actually do it in quick succession. So you do this, okay, and then you have the 4 aces, like so. Okay, so that is how you would traditionally do the Hofzinser production with a four of a kind, like so. Okay. So then you would just like display these 2 cards like so. All right, so that is how this production works. So like I mentioned in the history section, there is a switch that you can do with this move. It's not great, it's very jank, and I don't even know why Hofzinser would even use this move, but this move does exist, and that's why I'm teaching it. But again, I would personally not even bother with this move. But yeah, so when Hofzinser actually used this move, he actually used it to switch out 2 gaff cards, okay? But you can honestly just switch out any card. So your right hand is going to be openly holding the cards that you want to switch out, right? So these are the 2 cards that you want to get rid of, right? So in this case, it's going to be the 2 red aces. The cards that you want to switch in are going to be on top, and they're going to be on the bottom of the deck, right? And the deck itself is going to be held in preparation for the card catch. So it's going to be thumb on top and index, middle, and ring finger and pinky on the bottom, ready for the card catch, okay? So what Hofzinser says is that he's just gonna start tossing the cards in the air, okay? So the book actually recommends you to toss them about 20 centimeters to 25 centimeters. The book actually says 8 to 10 inches, okay? If you're not using if you're using freedom units, okay? So you're just gonna start tossing them in the air, right? I can't really toss them because of my awkward positioning with my tripod and all that stuff, but you're just gonna start tossing them in the air. And then the moment that you catch them, right? The moment that you catch them, you're just gonna palm the cards right away. He doesn't really detail how, but I assume that both cards are going to be kind of messy once you catch them in the air. So I assume he just sort of fiddles around with them until he can properly palm them, right? So it's really bizarre. He doesn't really specify which palm to use, but personally, if my cards are just going to be jank, I would just use my index finger to just kick the cards into a gambler's cop. That way, it's just going to be a lot faster, and it's going to be a lot simpler than going to a classic palm. But again, Hofzinser does not detail which palm to use, okay? So again, it's just going to be a toss, 20 to 25 centimeters up in the air, catch, and you're just going to go into a palm, okay? So then you're going to execute the card catch. So as soon as you palm the cards, you're then going to toss the deck into your right hand, and you're going to hold up the 2 cards in your left hand. it's very discrepant. I don't know why this move exists. So the reasoning, so according to Hofzinser, right, the reasoning for this sequence is that you're going to be tossing the cards in your right hand up into the air before you catch them in your left. Okay, so what's happening is this. I'm tossing them in the air and then doing this. Oh, I catch them in my left hand. So that's apparently the reasoning behind this move, which I can't tell if it's I can't tell if this move is like properly described or not, but that's how it is in the English translation. So I don't know how viable this move is. But I will say this, to make this move even remotely viable, I imagine, and I'm saying I imagine because this was not mentioned in the book, but I believe that Hofzinser probably used his head to contribute to the overall switch. So I believe that what he actually did was this, right? He would openly show the two cards, right? He would show the two cards. He would then toss the two cards, and he would actually look at the two cards, and he would pretend to follow along the trajectory, like so. So we toss, catch, palm the cards, and then he would then do the card catch, and then his eyes would settle on the two cards in his left hand. So it would be toss, pop, right? So then he would look over here. So that would be how I imagine the overall choreography of the move worked. He would toss, do this, so then there would be misdirection built into the move. He would force the audience members to actually just follow his gaze as he did the move, because if he actually just did this and he caught them and then he palmed the cards, that wouldn't be a very, very viable move, right? But if he actually forced the audience members to follow his gaze up to where the cards are supposedly like palmed, then he would have the time and misdirection to palm the cards, and then he could execute the move, right? So that's how I would imagine he would actually properly perform the move. He would gesture with his head, there, pop. So then he would have the appropriate cover for the palm and then for the switch. Okay, so that's how I assume that he would deal with the discrepancy of the move. But again, that's just speculation. But otherwise, I really don't see how else he would actually pull off this move besides follow, pop, right? I think that's the most viable way to perform this technique, because otherwise, I really don't know how else he would just do this, right? Because that would make no sense otherwise. But that's the switch that Hofzinser used for his effect. Okay, and again, it's very, very jank. Now, there are a couple of sources that I can point you towards for the card catch. The first one is 52 Explorations by Jack Parker, written by Andy Gladwin. The second is Best of Friends Volume 1 by Harry Lorayne. That's where the Harry Lorayne version of the card catch actually comes from, which I taught already, but it contains a whole bunch of more other moves and all that stuff, so you should go ahead and check it out as well. There's Talk About Tricks by Joshua J, Gagnon's Inner Sanctum by Tom Gagnon. There's Card Work, Card Play by Kostya Kimlat. There he has something called the Hofzinser Production, which is something that's very similar to the Hofzinser Production, but there are a couple of differences in that production as well, so you can go ahead and look at that. Now, just before we wrap things up, I do wanna give a small story. It's not really a funny story, but it's a stupid story anyways. It's just a random memory that I have in my head. So I actually performed the 3-card catch, I believe, around 6 years ago. It's really been a while since I last even touched this move. But I was doing the effect, and I was doing the effect with a borrowed deck, and I was using a friend's deck. The problem with that deck was that I actually put a breather crimp into the deck, except that the deck was so old that the breather actually failed. So when I did the 3-card catch, I actually caught the mate of the card instead. So I got the 3 of diamonds instead of the 3 of hearts, I believe. And I was like, close enough, I guess. So the main takeaway is, don't use breather crimps with very, very old decks. I don't know what this story has to do with anything, but it's there. If you, yeah, I don't know what the point of the story was, but it's just me saying stuff, right? So yeah, it's just a brief memory of me performing this effect. But honestly, as I'm getting more mature in Magic, I'm kind of tempted to sort of add this effect back into my repertoire and perform it again, mainly because it's a beginner effect, yes, but it's also simple, it's also very flashy, and so might as well just add it back into my repertoire. Because honestly, let's be honest here, there's nothing wrong with beginner level effects. The only thing that separates like really a beginner effect versus like a more advanced effect, besides from method, is honestly just presentation. Again, right? In terms of like hierarchy of what makes a magic effect like a magic effect, method is on the bottom of the hierarchy, right? It's like you can have the most intricate method, but if you have like the most boring presentation, it's gonna be a boring effect, right? But if you have the most interesting presentation, everyone's gonna like it. So honestly, there's nothing wrong with beginner effects. So I think that, you know, if I manage to find an interesting presentation for the 3-card catch, I might just toss it back into my repertoire because, again, it's flashy, it's simple, and if I manage to dress it up and make it interesting, I don't see why I shouldn't add it back in. But again, whether or not you want to add this effect back into your repertoire or anything like that, that's up to you. But it's, yeah. I'm debating it. But I think that about wraps it up for me today. Yeah, this was a very simple sandwich effect, or production or switch. It really depends on what you want to use it for. But yeah, just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's not good. Because this is flashy, this is simple, and this might be a pretty good effect as well. But yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next time.